Most of us, Mr. President, take the availability of clean, clear drinking water for granted. We turn on the taps in our homes and in this building and trust that what comes out looks and smells and tastes like water. But for a moment, let's pretend we don't. Let's pretend that when we turn on the faucets in the shower or the kitchen, that the water is brown. What would you think if the water that runs from your faucets at home was brown or smelled like rotten eggs or chlorine? What would you do? When a vital and essential necessity like potable water is not guaranteed, your entire life revolves around securing that vital and essential necessity. It consumes you, as it should. It becomes your focus, the center of your attention. Now imagine that you have access to the solution to your problem right in your own backyard on your own land. But when you try to access that solution, your neighbor and the government says, you need our approval to use what you own. How would you feel being told that you need someone else's permission to use what you already own? Women and men of the Senate, that is the experience of the Passamaquoddy trying to access water on their own land. For 40 years, more than a generation, two in these days, the water delivered by a local water district to the Passamaquoddy tribe at Sipayik and to the neighboring city of Eastport has been unreliable. The water source, a shallow reservoir, is practically filled with silt. It becomes more and more shallow as it fills and the silt deposited by the stream that feeds the pond. As a result, the reservoir is increasingly susceptible to wind and rainstorms that stir up dark, foul-colored liquid that more closely resembles weak coffee than drinking water. In the summer months, as we've heard, it is home to birds that use the water source as a bathroom. The level of fecal matter in the water requires significant treatment through chlorination. The result is a drinking water supply, if you want to call it that tends to be brown from residual silt, heavily chlorinated from cleaning out that fecal matter. I have seen pictures of children's skin that has been burned from this water. I have seen the drinking water notices that acknowledge that this water can cause cancer and liver damage. This is an unacceptable violation of human rights, and yet, this is the water that has been delivered to hundreds of homes in Washington County for decades, all under the state's watch, all under our jurisdiction. Since 2019, the Passamaquoddy tribe has led multi-stakeholder efforts to pursue short, medium, and long-term solutions to this human rights violation. The needs may be complicated, but they boil down to basically two things: money and access to alternate sources of drinking water. That is what this majority report is about, Mr. President. This amendment would rectify the fact that the local water district that serves the tribe in the city of Eastport is the only water district in the state that pays property taxes. Pursuant to this amendment, the local water district would be exempt from property taxes, and the savings would help the district afford the critical maintenance that it cannot otherwise afford today. To secure this human right and ensure better access to clean water for the residents of Sipayik, this amendment would allow the tribe to protect two pieces of tribally owned land where there is known to be water. These tribally owned lands would become protected by the federal government and immune from local regulation. The local town where these lands are located opposes these lands going into federal trust status. In the past, the town has demanded payment of a significant sum of money just to support tribal efforts to put lands in trust status. There's that word again, money. That same town, which does not rely on the same water supply as the tribe, now wishes to veto the Passamaquoddy effort to obtain clean drinking water. They say everyone has a right to clean water, yet they oppose their neighbors' attempts to get it. This dynamic, where a neighbor is allowed to veto how you use your own land, is the unfortunate reality of the Passamaquoddy tribe. How would you feel if your neighbor passed a law to specifically block you from using your own land to derive potable water? That's the Passamaquoddy experience today, and it is time for change. Opponents of this bill, as we have heard, say putting this land in trust over the objection of a local town is bad precedent. I say it's a violation of tribal sovereignty. Current law in Maine allows two tribes, the Maliseets and the Micmacs, to put land in trust without the need for local approval. So why should Passamaquoddy need the approval of the neighboring towns when other Maine tribes don't? Why should a municipality be able to block another government's quest for clean drinking water? Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution of Maine reads as follows. All people are born equally free and independent and have certain natural, inherent, and unalienable rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and of pursuing and obtaining safety and happiness. How can you defend life and liberty? How can you pursue safety and happiness if you do not have access to clean drinking water? The Passamaquoddy deserve the ability to use their water on their lands. Why does Maine or a municipality need to dictate how the tribe uses its water? In the middle of the pandemic, Maine required state approval before the tribe could supply clean drinking water from an on-reservation well to a school located just hundreds of feet away. Why is it in Maine that tribes must come to the state for permission to use their water? Why does Maine need this power over its first inhabitants? Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution of Maine reads as follows. All power is inherent in the people. All free governments are founded in their authority and instituted for their benefit. They have, therefore, an unalienable and indefeasible right to institute government and to alter, reform, or totally change the same when their safety and happiness require it. And so, the Passamaquoddy people have come in peace to this place to alter and reform our government through this legislation because their safety and happiness require it. Mr. President, a change has got to come. James Baldwin also wrote, I love America more than any other country in the world, and exactly for this reason, I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually. Well, I love Maine more than any other state in the nation, and precisely for this reason, I insist on the right to criticize her constructively. We have a tribal nation, and the EPA ready to step up and help this community in need today. The state of Maine must set aside her painful paternalism toward the tribes and get out of the way. Put another way, as my wise mother was wont to say, on this matter before us, Maine needs to go sit down somewhere and be quiet. On this vital matter, this amendment would assist Maine in her quietude. LD 906 would help the tribe, help the local water district, which would in turn provide clean water in the city of Eastport and for the tribe. This legislation would directly benefit the people in these communities and would not hold their human right to access clean drinking water subservient to the veto of a local government that has perfectly fine drinking water. This legislation would clarify that the tribe, working with the EPA, can regulate its own drinking water on its own lands without interference from the state or any of her political subdivisions. Access to clean drinking water is a natural, inherent, and unalienable human right, and so there is no reason why the Passamaquoddy tribe, which has brought solutions to the table, should be turned around in their quest to help themselves, their families, their neighbors, their community secure this fundamental human right. In these moments, Mr. President, when we have the opportunity to support the fulfillment of a human right, the answer should be simple. And so, Mr. President, as we go away this afternoon, let us go away ever more committed to advancing the dignity and worth of every human personality, ever more committed to protecting and defending the human rights of all people. I urge my colleagues today in the Senate to vote unanimously as one voice to advance this amendment that embraces human rights. It's been a long time coming. Let us stand with the people who have studied and labored over this issue, fighting for their bodily health and well-being. Let us stand with the people who have been stewards of and survived off this land since time immemorial. Let us stand with trust that the tribal community's instincts and their earnest desire to make a better, cleaner world for generations yet to be born. We must come to see, Mr. President, that the end we seek is a society at peace with itself, a society that can live with its conscience. Thank you, Mr. President.